industry and how to start a business. How the industry came in Kenya. Last week we were talking about the origin of the industry. Why are we learning this thing? We need to understand where the country has come from. We need to understand where the world has come from. We need to understand the origin of the industry. So today, our subtopic today is talking about the legal requirements of a business. What does a business require? What are the legal requirements of a business? Or what do you need as a business so that you can be able to fit yourself? What do you need as an engineer to be able to start a business or to be able to do business in Kenya? So we are talking about Kenya because we live in Kenya. So to start with, this guide is going to help us answer some of the questions and solve a lot of problems that we encounter during starting of the business. The opening or starting of companies has evolved all the way from 1963 when our country was got independence from the colonizers who are the Great Britain. Now Kenya has been a republic since its independence, that is from the Great Britain, that is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern in Ireland, that is the UK, in 1963. That is when our country Kenya got independence. So the political system is a parliamentary constitutional democracy which consists of the head of state, that is the president, the deputy president, and the cabinet of 20 secretaries. Now, the government functions through a large civil service implementing policy and judiciary. The country has a well-established legislative base with laws inherited from the UK as well as many modern states. English case law of the persuasive value in the Kenyan courts, and the formal business sector largely follows the European/American model of free market economics and capitalism. Now, the legal system in Kenya is based on, number one, the statutes, that is, including the statutes of general application that were in force in the England in August 1897. So some of the things that we use in our country, Kenya, are things that we adopted from our colonizers. And there are things that we adopted from the UK, that is the Great Britain, when they colonized us. Okay. So English case law were not inconsistent with the Kenya law. Now, you ask ourselves, what are the key reasons legal developments are affecting the doing of business in Kenya? Remember, we are looking at the legal things, the legal requirements for someone to be able to start a business in Kenya. So the thing number one, remember, before we go to the online registration, we started all the way from what used to happen when one wanted to do a company. You would need like around 20,000 to look for an advocate or a lawyer to be able to take you through the steps of opening a company. It was so tedious. Things would get spoiled in the way, and you spend a lot of money and time. A company would take a whole year to be able to be opened or to be able to have a company name. But these days, things changed. Recently, things changed. That is at the beginning of 2018 when we had the e-system. That is the system called the e-system. It is the government system that has come in to be able to help Kenyans in accessing some of these government things. So when the e-citizen came, it integrated the person for somebody to be able to register. You can register lands, you can register a company, you can register a birth certificate, you can register a driving license. All these things were put to e-citizen, and they have made life easier. Even a passport, you apply it on e-citizen. So at the beginning of the 2018, the company's registry announced that all the transactions regarding companies, including the incorporation of companies. Incorporation means starting. Incorporation of companies, changed its directorship, filing of the annual returns, changes in share capital, and changes in the shareholding structure of companies. now were to be carried out via the company's registry's online platform accessible on the eCitizen. Now, the Kenya's official government platform for citizens and other non-citizen residents transactions, such as renewing driving license and passports. So this move for digital platform has met some successes for the most part. So in April 2018, the Lands Registry announced that all transactions regarding land, including the transfer of land, the leasing of land, as well as the paying land rent and the land rates, were to be carried out via the Lands Information Management System, which is accessible through the eCitizen portal. However, the full implementation of the online service has been opposed due to the concern raised about the particularity of the system's rollout. So, Companies Act 2015. Kenya undertook a legislative transaction from the Companies Act chapter, that is 486, that is in the laws of Kenya, where we had the old Companies Act, which was largely based on the 1948 English Companies Statute in the new Companies Act of 2015. So the new act of the Companies Act, that is the new act, was assented by the president on the September 11th, 2015, and they fully came to enforce in 15th June 2016. So the Business Registration Service Act. So we have already talked about the Companies Act. Now we are on the Business Registration Service Act. So very closely linked to new act, it is Business Registration Service Act. Now, which came into force in 2015. In 2015, the Business Registration Service Act was enacted to ensure effective administration of the laws related to the incorporation, registration, and operation, and the management of companies, partnership, and firms. So to this effect, it establishes the Business Registration Service. This service conducts company registration, maintains corporate registers and records, and carries out their related functions. So it is based on in Nairobi, but has established branches in every county for easy access. That is, the Business Registration Service is headed by the Registrar General, who is responsible for its overall operation of SARF. And then we have the Insolvency Act. Insolvency is now insolving a company. Sometimes it reach a point when you think that your company is no longer getting is no more getting jobs, or it's not getting any profit. So you want to dissolve, maybe due to bankruptcy or of the company or something, or you are selling your company to somebody. That is, you want to dissolve. That is Insolvency Act. So the Insolvency Act 2015 was brought into law on September 11th, 2015. That is, it consolidates the procedures of relating to bankruptcy of natural persons and corporate insolvency matters. So bringing them under one act, effectively repealing, reappealing of the Bankruptcy Act of the laws of Kenya. Winding up of the companies was previously provided for under Part 6 of the old Companies Act, while the insolvency of natural persons was covered in the Bankruptcy Act. Now, the Insolvency Act adopts a rehabilitative approach compared to the prior regime of seeking to revive insolvency companies, now through administration, as opposed to resorting to direct liquidation proceedings. The Insolvency Act focuses more on assessing insolvency natural persons, incorporated entities, and insolvent corporate bodies whose financial position is remediable to continue operating as ongoing concerns, so that they may be able to meet their financial obligation and subscription. Then we have the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. The Kenya adopted the new constitution of that, and the introduction of the company gain task. So the company gains task. So the Finance Act of 2014 signaled the return of capital gain tax to Kenya after almost 30 years of suspension being in 1985. More particularly, the Finance Act 2014 embedded the eighth schedule of income tax by the providing the tax gain accruing to a company or an individual or the transfer of property situated in Kenya. Now, what does this mean? The company gain, the Capital Gains Act. You remember when somebody is starting a company, you normally have a structure or a memorandum of the company. Remember, there's a day we talked about the memorandum, that is the structure of the company, memorandum of association, the shareholders, and what we talked about it last time. So when you start a company, normally a company must have capital. So this capital, the KRA, remember there's normally a KRA pin that is meant for that specific company. The moment the Companies Act, or the moment the Attorney General assigns your company that it is able now to start working, you're normally given a company pin that is called a KRA pin. So you have to state your starting capital in that before you are able to process all the company's requirements. So when you give out the pin, the capital, now the capital gain a tax. So after some times, when now this capital that you started with grows and grows and grows, the tax is able to relieve for you at least some percentage of the capital, meaning you will not pay tax to some extent because of that. Okay. We proceed. Establishing a business in Kenya. Now, establishing a business vehicles. What are the most common forms of business vehicles used in Kenya? So we need to understand what are some of the common things. The most common forms of business vehicles used by foreign investors in Kenya are private limited liability companies, as they are straightforward and inexpensive to establish, and there are no minimum or maximum share capital requirements. That is, private companies will usually have at least one director who is the natural person. Private companies must have at least one shareholder. That is, single member companies are now permitted under the new act. There is no requirement to have local Kenyan national shareholders or local Kenyan directors. While this is the case, the Kenya Revenue Authority has been insisting that the non-resident directors have PIN number, while there is no explicit law which requires this. So it does seem to be the practice. This then creates for the non-resident directors. So foreign enterprises can establish in Kenya as branches of foreign companies, although branches of foreign companies are charged corporate tax at a rate of 37.5% if they enter into trading activities. So this is compared to Kenya companies, which pay a corporate tax of 30%. Now, in relation to most common forms of corporation business vehicles used in foreign companies in Kenya, what are the registration and requirements of? Now, what are the requirements of starting a company? The first thing, that is a Kenyan company. The procedure for the incorporation of a private company in Kenya are as follows. Number one is the name reservation. In the name reservation, that is, an application is made by the registrar of companies, that is called the registrar, to search and reserve the proposed company name. That is, names are usually invalid when approved for use or for use within 30 days of reservation of the name. So let's say that I want to start a company today. The first thing I'll do is I do a name search. I have a name in mind that I want to start a company. So what will I do? I'll go to eCitizen, I create an account, and then I do a name search. I just pay 150 shillings. It takes 1 day to 7 days. It comes out. And then when no other company has such a name existing, then you are given the name. And then when you are given the name, you are given a provision of up to 30 days to be able to register the company. That is the name. If you don't register the name, then it will be taken back. So anybody else can be given the name if it elapses 30 days before you can be able to do that. Constitutive documents. Now the constitutive documents of the company must be subscribed to by at least one subscriber. That is, a company can opt to adopt the model articles as prescribed by the Companies Act, which provide that the objects of the company are unlimited, or it may adopt its own set of articles and prescribe specific objects within the article if it so wishes. Now, registration. After stamping the documents and are lodged by the registrar together with the following documents, that is, a statement of capital and initial shareholder statement of officers of the company and the statement of the registered office. That is, you have to note the office. The location, office means the location where the company will be found, and then the notice of residential address where the directors live. Where can we find the directors? The location where they live, and then a statement of the nominal capital. Then registration of the new company generally takes between 3 to 4 weeks from the submission of the relevant documents. While there is no legal requirement for a maximum or minimum share capital, the registrar of companies and the collector of the stamp duty recommend that a company to be incorporated with a minimum share capital of at least 10,000. This affords an exemption or to pay stamp duty upon the registration of the company. Now, the Kenyan company must notify the registrar of any changes in respect to its, that is, article of association. Maybe you want to change the registration details, like maybe where you live, the director's details you want to change, the secretary's details you want to change, the capital, share capital or allotment details of the shares, then the company name. When you want to change the company name, you still have to go back to Sharia House and tell them so that they can change it for you. Any changes in the details must be notified by the registrar through the prescribed forms within the prescribed timelines, which are between 14 days to 30 days. Failure to make such notification may attract penalties. Company secretary. Who is a company secretary? All public companies in Kenya, as well as private companies with a share capital of at least 5 million, are required to appoint a qualified company secretary who is registered member of the Kenya Institute of the Certified Public Secretaries. And then an auditor. Your company should also have an auditor. That is, every company is required to appoint an auditor who is a member of the Institute of the Certified Public Accounts in Kenya, unless the directors foresee that the audit of financial statement is unlikely to be required by the company. And the annual returns. Every company is required to file a return with the registrar at least once a year. A private company can be converted into a public company at any time, and vice versa. Now, all companies are required to file audit accounts at the company's registry unless the company qualifies a small company. That is, a company qualifies a small company if it satisfies 2 or more of the following requirements. That is, it has a turnover of not more than 50 million. The value of it, at least net of shown in the balance of end year, is not more than 20 million shillings. It does not have more than 50 employees. So that company is a small company. Then a branch of a foreign company. So if we have a foreign company coming in to be as a branch in Kenya, the Companies Act contains extensive disclosure and compliance requirements for the companies that are incorporated outside Kenya that wish to register a branch or respective office to do business in Kenya. Now, a foreign company that establishes a place of business in Kenya must file certain documents and information with the registry within 30 days of the establishment of the place of business in Kenya. Now, as a matter of practice, this should be undertaken in advance somebody is writing something. I am not clear. Yeah. Can you unmute your mic, Peter, so that
Madam ya sauti yako iko na scratches, so siwezi kupata vizuri.
kwa nini? Ama ni connection yako iko na shida? Sasa, are you getting me well?
Ina crack, sauti ina crack.
Na katika.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I do? I can see I have full network. So sasa naye mnanipata bado inakatika.
Inakatika tu bado.
Okay. What can we do? Let me log in again.
Okay.
Hello. Unmute your mic now. So I think you're now getting me.
Yes.
Salat.
Yes,
Sasa
you can get
mnanipata?
me. Yes.
Oh, I think ni shida tu ya connection, but we can now proceed. You can
Okay.
mute your mics. Good. So we were still on registration of companies. We had said now, in case somebody want to register a branch of a company, maybe it's a foreign company, and wants to register this company to a branch in Kenya, and then he has to follow those regulations that we have talked about. So any changes to the details of the branch of the foreign company must be notified by, to the registrar within 60 days of such changes. So this includes, Humphrey, please mute your mic. Good. This include changes to the number one, the charter, statute, and memorandum of articles. The directors of or the secretary of the foreign company of their particulars, the names or address of the persons authorized to accept the service on behalf of the foreign company, the address and principal registered office of the foreign company. And then we have the limited liability partnership. What is the limited liability partnership? Section 6, that is Part 2 of the Limited Liability Partnership Act 42, 2011 Act provides that on being registered under the Limited Liability Partnership Act, the Limited Liability Partnership becomes a body corporate with perpetual succession with a legal personality separate from that of its partners. So this means with its partners. So this means that the change in the partners limited liability partnership does not affect the existence or rights or obligation of the company. Now, as a body corporate, a limited liability partnership is solely obligated to the issue of raising the contract, tort, or otherwise. So as a body corporate to the limited liability partnership, it is in its name capable of suing and being sued, acquiring, owning, holding, and developing or disposing of movable or immovable property, and doing such other acts and things as a body corporate may lawfully do. So the Limited Liability Partnership Act provides that a person is not personally liable directly or indirectly or for an obligation arising from the contract, tort, or otherwise, only because the person is a partner of that limited liability partnership. So a partner is not personally liable for the wrongful act or omission of another partner for the limited liability partnership. So the partners of the limited liability partnership are not personally liable for any torts by the limited liability partnership. So, however, the partners are personally liable for their if they assume a personal duty of care or act of breach of that duty. Step to take taken in the registration of a limited liability partnership. So that is another type of company. The name reservation, that is all application. An application is made to reserve the proposed name with the registrar. The registrar has the right to reject the names that are considered to be undesirable or that are similar to the names of existing companies. When prescribed forms, the applicants are required to fill in and sign the prescribed forms of registration for the companies and substitute this registrar of the limited liability partnership. So these forms provide particulars of partners and managing partners and particulars of the limited liability partners registration office. Then we also have a partnership deed, which is one of the documents of the limited liability partnership. So in the partnership deed, this is the constitution of the limited liability partnership, which governs relations among the partners. It provides for the powers of each partners. So the signing mandate for the bank's account, transaction, and other matters is necessary to consider this this and other matters when drafting the partnership deed. Then we have registration certificate. So registration certificate is of the limited liability partnership is complete when the registrar issues a registration certificate, which must be displayed at the registrar's office. This process has been automated, which speeds up the registration process. As such, it takes between 2 to 3 weeks, just like a private company. The application for registration of the limited liability partnership is done online via the eCitizen portal. Then the operational requirements of the limited liability partnership under Kenya. What does the person need to be able, or that do people need to be able to operate? In addition to the operational requirements applicable to business generally, e.g. the business permit, procuring KRA PIN, certificates, filling tax requirement, etc. The following operational requirements are specifically applicable to the limited liability partners company in Kenya. So the requirements to keep proper books of account for at least 7 years. That is Section 30, Part 1 and Part 2 of the Limited Liability Partnership Act requires limited liability partners to keep proper and accurate accounting records for a period of at least 7 years, where the limited liability partnership fails to keep proper accounting records for a period of at least 7 years are required for Section 30, Part 1 and 2. Part 1 and 2, the partnership and each of the partners commits an offense and are liable for conviction. Another is if the offender is a natural person, to the fine not exceeding 100,000 or to imprisonment of a term not exceeding 2 years. That is, if you fail to do such submissions of the proper accounting. And then, if the offender is a body corporate, it to a fine not exceeding 100,000. So partners agent of the limited liability partnership partners' ability to bind the limited liability partnership, where the partner of the limited liability partnership is found liable to a person other than a partner of that company as a result of a wrongful act or omission of the partner in the course of the business of the limited liability partnership. Now the limited liability partnership is liable to the same extent as the particular partner. However, the Section 10. So all these are things that are in our constitution and are there to govern us on how we deal with the registration of a company and how to handle the company. Action to a person who has no longer partnership, who are no longer partners in the limited liability partnership. So the Section 10 or Part 3 of the Limited Liability Partners Act provides that where a person has ceased to be a partner of the limited liability partners, the former partner is in relation to a person dealing with the partnership to be treated as still being a partner of a partnership and is therefore capable of binding the limited liability partnership unless the person has noticed that the former partner has ceased to be a partner of the limited liability partnership. Unless the person has noticed that the former partner has ceased to be a partner of the limited liability partnership, and the former partner has ceased also to be a partner of that once of the fact has been delivered. So all those are the issues. Then a cooperative review of the business entities. Now, with the exception of certain specific distinctions, principally outlined overleaf the effect of establishing a Kenyan company as opposed to a branch of the foreign company does not considerably differ from a Kenyan legal perspective. Both companies have similar powers, including the power of borrowing and the purchasing of these securities over movable and immovable property. However, it is recommended that individuals verify whether this position would change from that perspective. So this is a brief guide A corporate issue withholding tax income, general rate of Kenya residence of taxpayer, Kenyan company branch. So the ability to conduct the business, that is the corporate issue. Then we have the freedom to carry out business in Kenya. It's a Kenya company. Then the branch, what about the branch? Freedom to carry out business. And then the legal of presence, yes, a Kenya for a company, it's given. So this is just a summary table of the freedoms or of the operations, the provisions of a company to be able to operate. And then the tax income is taxable at the rate of 30% of the taxable profits, that is the taxable at the rate of 37.5. And then we have tax compensating, we have a reporting of obligations and accounts. You'll be able to look at that table. Investment incentive, that is what grants or incentives are available to investors. We have tax holidays, we have license and permits. Those are now investors. When investors want to come in, investments, we have the time scale and fees, VAT and custom duty exemptions. This is now to investors, those who want to come out now to come on and invest. Then foreign investors, are there any restriction on foreign investment, that is including authorization required by the central or the local government? No, the foreign investment is actually encouraged in all sectors of the economy. However, there are certain ownership and control restrictions and authorization that are applicable in the specific sectors, including banking, insurance, mining, and telecommunication restriction are also applicable to comprise listed of Nairobi companies listed in Nairobi Security Exchange, companies holding, that is by lease or purchase, agricultural land. These companies require approval or exemption from the land control boards under the Land Control Act. And then in addition, it is necessary for entities operating in certain sectors to be licensed by the relevant regulator. For example, banks require license from the Central Bank of Kenya. Insurance companies require license from the Insurance Regulatory Body. Main companies require license from the mineral, that is mining, from the Mineral Rights Board. Telecommunication companies require license from the Communication Authority of Kenya. Companies listed in the Nairobi Stock Exchange are regulated by the Capital Monies Authority. Now, exchange controls. Are there any exchange controls of current regulations? Now, there are currently no foreign exchange controls in Kenya, and the Kenya currency is freely tradable with any major world currencies. As banking transactions are required to be conducted through authorized and licensed banks. Now, imports and exports. Are there any imports and exports regulation? Imports and exports is primarily regulated by the East African Community Customs Management Act 2004. It is a regionally statute enhanced by the East African Registration Assembly and regulates the levying of the import taxes on goods imported into the East African Commission members states. So in addition, Kenya has enacted the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act. So operating a business. Operating a business now. Employment. What are the main laws regarding employment regulations? Now, labor matters in Kenya are governed by the various pieces of the legislation, namely, that is the Employment Act 2007, and then we have the Labor Relations Act, the labor institutions, the regulation of wages, the labor, the industrial code. And remember, our next topic will be on wages. We'll now want to know how are people paid. What are the regulations of paying? That the terms and conditions of employment are regulated under the Employment Act and the regulations of wages act order. Although the Employment Act provides for the minimum terms of condition for employment, the employer and the employee are free to provide in their contract for terms and conditions of employment that are more favorable than the minimum prescribed in the Employment Act. That is, the Employment Act does not apply to the independent contractors. Then, in a written contract of employment are required, if so, what terms must be included in it? Do they imply terms and for collective agreement apply in the employment relationship? So, yes, the Employment Act provides that a contract of service for a period of a number of working days, which amount in the aggregate to the equivalent of 3 months or more, shall be in writing. The written contract of service shall state particulars of employment which may be given to the employee in installments and shall be given in not later than 2 months after the beginning of the employment. So below are some of the requirements to be included in the Employment Act. So the name, the age, the permanent address, those are now when employing somebody. The gender of the employee, the name of the employer, the job description, the date of commencement of the employment form and duration of the contract, the place of work, the hours of work, the remuneration, scale of rate of remunerations, details and other benefits, the intervals at which the remuneration is paid, the dates on which the employee period of continuous employment began, taking into account any unemployment with a previous employer, which counts towards that previous entitlement to annual leave, including public holidays and holiday pay in sufficient details to enable accrue holiday pay for termination of employment to be precisely calculated. Now, sick leave is also there. Sick leave pay and Employment Act provide the sick leave and pay may be set out in another document that is reasonably accessible to the employee. Pension and a pension scheme, the length on notice of termination of the contract by the contractor and the employee, where employment is not for an indefinite period, the period for which it is expected to continue, or if it is for a fixed term, that the date then should be noted. Now, with the exemption of the sick leave pay, pensions and pension schemes, which may be set out to another document that is reasonably accessible to the employee, or the above matters are required to be single documents. So in general, the employment laws in Kenya are employee-friendly, however, for written employment contracts to reduce instances of conflict between the employer and the employee. So certain human resources policies are required by law. An employer who employs more than 50 employees must have a disciplinary policy. Further, an employer who has more than 20 employees is required to have a policy on sexual harassment. Foreign employees require work permits? Yes, foreign employees must obtain a work permit before starting work in Kenya. So there are 9 categories of work permits, including Class A permits, which issues to permit persons who intend to engage, whether alone or in partnership, in the protecting of minerals or mining in Kenya, and who are obtained or are assured of obtaining any prospective mining rights license and has sufficient capital. Then we have the Class B permit, which is issued to those who are intended to engage in business of agriculture and animal husbandry in Kenya, and who have acquired possession of hold an interest in land and in Kenya and have sufficient capital and resources. Then we have Class C permission, issued to members of prescribed possession who intend to practice their profession, whether alone or in partnership in Kenya, and who possess the prescribed qualification and have sufficient capital or resources for the purpose. Then Class D permit issued to persons offered specific employment by a specific employer and who are qualified to undertake that employment. Then Class F permit issued to persons who intend to engage whether alone or in partnership as a specific manager in Kenya and have obtained or are issued or assured of obtaining any license. Then Class G permit is issued to persons who intend to engage whether alone or in partnership in specific trade business position other than those prescribed in possession of Class C permit. Then Class I, they are issued a permit for persons who are members of societies approved by the government and engage in religious or charitable funds like NGOs. Okay, we proceed. I'm waiting for the slide to load. Good. Then we have the Class K permit. It is issued to persons who are not less than 10 years old and have an assured annual income that is derived from the source that can of other than employment, occupation, trade, business, and or profession, and being an income that is derived outside the Kenya but limited in Kenya, derived from the property, pension, or the annuity payable from the sources in Kenya, or derived from capital. We have Class M. The Class M permit is issued persons granted refugee status or any spouse of such refugee who intends to take up employment or engagement in occupation. So are entitled to management representation of you'll be able to read that. And then summary dismissal. This is a very important part. So how is the termination of individual employment contract dismissal? Employees may be dismissed from gross misconduct or a fundamental breach of employment contracts. So the Employment Act considered the following act as constituting gross misconduct, justifying summary dismissal: absence from work without leave or lawful cause, intoxication in the workplace, intoxication meaning taking things like alcohol or drugs, addictive drugs in workplace, neglecting to perform duty under the Employment Act, then using abusive language or behaving in an insulting manner to the organs of authority, committing on reasonable and sufficient grounds in a crime offense. And then we have failing to obey a directive from the employer that is also a gross misconduct and can lead to dismissal. Dismissal is just termination of employment. When you cannot do what needs, then you will be terminated and you will not be able to continue your employment. Then being arrested by the offense punishable by the imprisonment and not being released within 40 days of arrest. So an employer terminates an employee on the ground of misconduct, poor performance, or a physical incapability. It must follow due process. That is, this entails explaining to the employee in a language he or she understands the reasons for the termination, allowing the employee to have a representative or his or her choice present during the explanation, hearing and considering any representation that the employee and the representative, if any, may take regarding the employee's termination. If an employee is dismissed, entitled to be given notice and is only due to pay off leave days or contract. However, the Employment Act provides for minimum notice periods such as 28 days notice for the contract is to pay wages or salary periodically at intervals of exceeding 1 month and 7 days notice. So we normally say when somebody wants to dismiss you, maybe on grounds that you don't agree, this person can pay you like 28 days more. So if a person wants you to end the contract today and he had not notified you, so this person will now be able, will give you one extra month payment to compensate the losses that you encounter. So remedies of an unfair dismissal, whether or not the employer conducts the termination in a fair manner, an employee is legally entitled to dispute unlawfulness of fair where termination is allowed pursuant to an employment contract, and by giving due notice, the employee still has the ability to make a claim for unfair termination. So the employment law and the industrial court are generally employee friendly. If the court finds that the termination was not justified or was unfair, then it may order the employee to, number one, reinstate or re-engage the employee in position comparable to that which the employee was employed prior to his termination. Another thing, the company is paying wages for salary in lieu of notice that should have been given to him or her, or pay the employee the equivalent up to 12 months gross monthly wages or salary. So are redundancies and mass layoffs regulated? Yes, redundancies must be substantive and procedurally fair. Substantive and fair demands are that the reasons for the redundancy must be justified and provable. For instance, redundancy would be justified if the service of the employees become superficial and termination of their employment is considered. So the procedural requirements under include the notification process and application statutory criteria in selecting the employee to the declared redundant. That is, this regards notification. An employer is required to notify the labor office and the effect employee. So tax is there, excessive value added tax. You'll be able to read that. Our time is up, and the remaining minutes I would like to leave it for question and answers. Can hear questions from you and comments before we can finish. So we have discussed the requirements of things that are needed for one to be able to start a company in Kenya. So Peter, Humphrey, unmute your mics. Yes, Peter, say something. A question, a comment, or anything.
Are these regulation for all companies or kuna specific nini structure of nini kuanzisha company according to company?
Regulations za kuanzisha company ama za employment?
Company. So are they all the same? The procedure ni the same, zinafuata the same kulingana na company.
We have talked about private companies and public companies. The regulations ni same tu. Kama unataka kwanza company, you have to get your registration name, you have to register the name, then register the company. You pay at least 150 for name search, and then you pay around 10,000 shillings. Supposed to be 10,000 for now registering the company. So the procedure is just the same.
And what about the qualification for someone to start a company? For example, if I want to start a power generating company.
For power generating company, the process of registering a company is just normal. You have to go and get the name search, and before that, you have to get a license, because for you to be able to generate power, there's also another body that is called the Energy and Petroleum and Energy Corporation. It used to be that regulates production of power. So if you want to start an energy generating company, you have to get a license. After getting a license, now you can go to the process of registering a company. You have to have a license first from the ERC, meaning to allow you to do that. So from ERC, they'll tell you the requirements, what you need, then they can be able. Hope that is okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Humphrey, you have a question?
No, I have a confusion. Like, let's say you have a company, then you've been umenyang'anywa license yako permanently.
Your company.
So what will happen after that?
Kwa nini?
Hello?
Okay, what is the reason for them taking away the license?
Okay, let's say you are not meeting the requirements. Yeah.
You know, that is called dismissal. We said being dissolved. It can be dissolved when when a company is being dissolved, you can either decide to dissolve the company yourself, or the state can dissolve your company. Sometimes if you are not meeting those requirements, umenyang'anywa license. Sometimes the company inaweza dissolviwa kabisa na uwezi ukapewa hiyo license tena. Ama sometimes they can even tell you to pay some fine so that you can get back your company. So it depends with the level at which you are not complying with the regulations. So kama hizi zenye walisema recently za pombe, ati people should watu waache kuuza pombe, and then anybody who will be found selling liquor will be denied the license. So wakishanyanganywa license, pia ina depend if you had a very big business, if you are able to defend yourself, you can be told to pay some fine so that you get back the license. But otherwise wanaweza wakakataa kabisa, and then you will have to start a new company again.
Okay.
So any other question? I hope you guys enjoyed the class today.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so next week, I'm dedicating the whole of next week you guys to do Cat 2. So and then when the moment we come back now, we'll be working about wages. Wages is our next topic, and I want you to read in advance. How do you pay people? What are the rates of paying? What does the law require for paying people? What does it allow? How much can you pay? How much can you not pay? What is piece rate? What is hourly? We will learn about all those things, and we'll be able to understand how people are being paid in employment. So if there is no any other question, I would like us to end there, unless there's a comment or a question. Humphrey, Peter, mko na maswali ama comment ama tumalizie hapo?
Tumalizie hapo.
Alafu sasa bado I hope Salad aliwaambia I want us to cover today. Leo nataka kuwaeka sana na kusoma. Remember we had some 2 classes that we were supposed to have yesterday na hatukuwa nazo. Ndio?
Yes.
Yes, today we are